I am making a drop stitch shawl, as you just saw, and I wanted to show you how the drop stitch works on the Knifty Knitter looms. Now, when this loop that's on here, I just E-wrapped once and knitted off. And in this drop stitch pattern, the next step is to circle each peg twice as I go back across the loom. So I'm actually going to have 3 loops on each of these pegs. You can see here I wrapped the peg twice. This pattern is done with 3 yarns as one, so the yarn on each peg gets pretty bulky as you work, but you can always stop and use your hook to identify the strands of yarn. So we started with each peg E-wrapped once, and we're wrapping each peg 2 times. So there's 3 loops on each peg. And knit the bottom loop up over the top 2 loops. So we're going to bring the bottom loop on each peg up and over the top 2 loops that we just wrapped. That's typical in every drop stitch pattern. That secures it in place for what we're going to do next. Okay, so I have knitted off the bottom loop over the top 2 loops all the way to the end. Now it is time for me to go ahead and drop that stitch. It gets its name drop stitch because the next step can start on this edge. But you just take that top loop, you pull it up and off the peg. And that opens it up into one large loop. I don't know if you can see that from watching the video, but this is the loop that we just wrapped twice around each peg. And so when you drop that first one off, it opens it up into a very large loop, making a wide open stitch in your finished shawl. Here we go, you can probably see that better. It opens it up into a very large loop just by lifting that second wrap of the yarn that we just made off the loop. Oops, I lost one. There you go, and you can see that. You can see how large that is. That gives a open look to the drop stitch. Is to E-wrap once after each drop stitch. It's time for us to continue where we started at the beginning of this video, and that's by wrapping each peg 2 times to create the next set of drop stitches, or the next row of drop stitches. So basically in this pattern, each row of drop stitches is followed by a row of E-wrap. or twisted stockinette stitches. And you're wrapping each peg twice, but in the next step we lift that top loop off, and that creates an open loop, which is, of course, your drop stitch.